She ran into the nightclub soaked in rain and fear. Her abusive ex was right behind her. Desperate, shaking, nowhere left to hide, she did the unthinkable. She sat on the lap of a stranger, a man every criminal in the city feared. And when her ex tried to drag her away, that stranger looked up, eyes cold as steel, and said only 4 words. "I won't let him hurt you." She didn't know it yet, but she had just fallen into the arms of the devil himself. This is the story of how danger became her only safety and how love was born in the heart of darkness. Before we start, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? It means a lot seeing people connect through these stories. The rain poured down like the sky itself was weeping. Elena's boots splashed through puddles as she ran, heart pounding so fast it hurt. The city lights blurred with the tears in her eyes. Behind her, she could still hear the echo of his voice, "Cole. Run all you want, baby, you'll come crawling back." The words stabbed through her memory. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Her lungs burned, her throat ached, and her hands trembled as she clutched her small black purse, the only thing she'd managed to grab when she escaped the apartment. Her ribs still ached from the last time he hit her. It had been the night she told him she wanted to leave. That night, she realized that the charming police officer she once loved had turned into a monster wearing a badge. Now, she had nowhere to go. Elena spotted a building ahead, tall, glowing with neon lights and pulsing with music. A nightclub. Crowded. Loud. The perfect place to disappear. She shoved past the bouncers, barely hearing their protests. Inside, the music thumped so hard she could feel it in her bones. The air smelled like perfume, sweat, and expensive alcohol. Bodies moved like waves under flashing lights. She tried to calm her breathing, blending into the chaos. Maybe she'd lost him. Maybe. Her eyes froze. Across the room, through the crowd and haze of colored light, he was there. Cole. He was scanning the dance floor, tall and broad in his dark jacket, that fake smile he wore when he wanted to look harmless. But she knew that smile. It always came before the rage. Elena's hands shook. She couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded like a drum. "Oh my God," she whispered, backing toward the bar. "He found me." "Hey, you okay?" a woman beside her asked. The girl had a short pink dress and a kind face. Elena forced a shaky smile. "Why yeah. Just need some air." But there was no air. The room was closing in. Cole started moving, pushing through the crowd. He saw her. Panic swallowed everything. She turned to run, but people were everywhere, laughing, dancing, blocking her path. Her eyes darted across the room, searching for any escape, and then she saw him. A man sitting in the VIP section behind a red velvet rope. 3 men in suits, drinking quietly while the rest of the club spun like madness. The one in the center caught her attention instantly. He didn't look like he belonged here, he owned the place just by sitting there. Black suit. Black tie. Dark eyes. Sharp jawline. Calm in the middle of chaos. Something about him screamed power, the kind that made other people stay out of his way. And when his gaze lifted and met hers, it was like the world stilled. No music. No lights. Just those eyes, watching her. Assessing. Cole was only a few steps away now, calling her name. "Elena. There you are, sweetheart." Terror shot through her veins. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just moved. Elena rushed toward the mysterious man's table, heart pounding like thunder. His 2 guards stood to block her, but she blurted out, "Please. I need help, he's coming." The man in the center raised a hand, stopping his guards. He didn't say a word, just looked at her, curious. Without thinking, she slid into the booth, right onto his lap. The crowd seemed to fade. The man's body was warm and solid beneath her. He didn't flinch, didn't move, just tilted his head slightly, his voice smooth and low. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Her breath hitched. That man, please, just pretend we're together. Cole's voice came closer. "Elena." The man's arm slipped around her waist, firm but not rough. His lips brushed her ear as he whispered, "Play along. I won't let him touch you." She felt his heartbeat steady beneath her palm. For the first time that night, the panic eased just a little. Cole appeared at the edge of the VIP rope, glaring. "Excuse me," he said to the guard, "that's my girlfriend." The man beneath her, still holding her, finally looked up. His expression was calm, polite even. But his eyes were dangerous. "I don't think she wants to go with you," he said softly. Cole forced a smile. "You don't understand. She's just upset. I'm a police officer. She is sitting on my lap," the stranger interrupted smoothly. "And she doesn't look upset. She looks scared of you." Cole's jaw tightened. He looked between them, then at the two large men flanking the booth. Something in his confidence cracked. The stranger's voice dropped lower, colder. "I suggest you leave before I change my mind about being polite." For a moment, the world hung silent. Then Cole gave a tight smile, muttered something under his breath, and backed away. When he disappeared into the crowd, Elena finally exhaled. She realized her hands were gripping the man's jacket. "I'm sorry," she whispered, trembling. "I didn't know what else to do." He studied her quietly. "No apology needed. But you shouldn't be here." "I didn't have a choice." The man's gaze softened slightly. "What's your name?" "Elena." "I'm Lucian," he said, voice smooth as velvet. "Lucian Moretti." The name sounded familiar, one she'd heard whispered at the diner where she used to work. Rumors about a man who ran the city's underground like a chessboard. A man people feared. She swallowed. "Thank you, Mr. Moretti." He smirked faintly. "Just Lucian. And you shouldn't thank me yet." "Why?" "Because men like me don't save people for free." The words sent a chill through her, but before she could answer, his tone softened. "But you don't look like someone who belongs in a place like this." Elena blinked back tears. "I don't belong anywhere anymore." Lucian leaned closer. "Then maybe it's time you let someone protect you." The last thing she remembered that night was him standing, taking her hand, and leading her out into the rain. His black car waited outside, engine humming like a heartbeat in the dark. And for the first time in months, she didn't feel like prey. The mansion stood on a hill overlooking the sleeping city, dark stone, iron gates, and flickering lights that whispered of wealth and danger. Elena hesitated at the entrance. "This is your house?" Lucian nodded once. "You'll be safe here." "I shouldn't be here," she murmured. "You'd rather be out there, waiting for him?" His gaze pinned her in place. "You're trembling, Elena. Sit down before you fall." Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. Every corner gleamed with polished marble, silver accents, and shadows that seemed to watch her. A woman appeared at the top of the staircase, older, elegant, kind eyes behind stern poise. "Mr. Moretti." "Rosa," Lucian said. "This is Elena. She'll be staying here for a while." Rosa gave a small nod, her tone gentle. "Welcome, dear. You must be exhausted." Elena hesitated. "I don't want to intrude." "Nonsense," Rosa said with a motherly smile. "Come, I'll show you to a room." As Rosa led her upstairs, Elena glanced back at Lucian. He was on the phone now, voice low and commanding, switching between English and Italian. Even in conversation, his presence filled the space. Her room was large and warm, the opposite of every dingy motel she'd hidden in for months. The bed was soft, the walls pale cream, and a faint scent of lavender hung in the air. Rosa set down a tray. "Tea. It'll calm your nerves." "Thank you." As Rosa turned to leave, Elena asked quietly, "Is he dangerous?" The woman paused, a faint, knowing smile tugging her lips. "He is what this city made him to be. But he has a good heart, when he chooses to use it." That night, Elena sat on the bed, sipping tea with shaking hands. For the first time in forever, no one was banging on her door. No one was screaming her name. Just silence. She fell asleep before she realized she'd closed her eyes. She woke to the smell of coffee. Morning light filtered through soft curtains. When she stepped downstairs, Lucian was at the kitchen island, sleeves rolled up, reading a newspaper. He glanced up. "Morning." Elena froze. He looked different. Less terrifying in daylight. Still powerful, but more human. "You sleep better than I have in months," she admitted softly. He poured her coffee, handed her the cup. "Drink." You look like you might pass out. Thank you, for last night, she said. For helping me. Lucian nodded slightly. Who was he? Her throat tightened. My ex-Cole. He was a police officer. Lucian's brow lifted. A cop? Yes. Which means if I go to the police, they'll just call him. He said no one would ever believe me. Lucian's eyes darkened. Then he needs to be taught fear. She stared at him, unsure if he was joking. He wasn't. I don't want anyone hurt, she said quickly. I just want him to stop. Lucian studied her over the rim of his cup. You're different, Elena. Most people I deal with don't care about mercy. I don't want to become like him, she whispered. His gaze softened, just a flicker, before he stood. Then I'll make sure he doesn't come near you again. You have my word. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. You don't even know me. Lucian smirked faintly. Maybe I'm curious. Or maybe I saw something in your eyes that reminded me what I used to be before all this. What were you before? He gave a ghost of a smile. Someone who believed in saving people. Their eyes held a quiet, heavy understanding between two broken souls. Later that day, Rosa found Elena sitting in the garden, staring at the fountain. You've been quiet all morning, Rosa said, handing her a plate of breakfast she hadn't asked for. I don't know what to do now, Elena admitted. I can't go home. I can't go back to work. I feel like a ghost. Rosa placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sometimes you need to rest before you start over. As she ate, Lucian appeared at the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried that same calm strength. Rosa, give us a moment. When they were alone, he sat opposite her. I've been thinking. You can't stay hidden forever. He'll look for you again. Her stomach turned cold. What do you mean? Lucian leaned forward slightly. If you stay here, under my protection, no one will touch you. Not your ex, not anyone. But if you leave, I'll be running forever, she finished quietly. He nodded. I can give you a new life. New name. New start. But that means trusting me completely. She looked up, meeting his gaze. Trusting a man I met last night? He almost smiled. Fair point. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of the fountain filled the silence. Finally, she said softly, you scare me. Lucian's brow furrowed slightly. Good. Her eyes widened. It means you still know danger when you see it, he said. But don't confuse fear with safety. Sometimes, the devil you don't know is the only one who can protect you from the monsters you do. Elena stared at him, torn between logic and instinct. Everything about him screamed danger, yet her gut told her he wouldn't hurt her. What happens if I stay? She asked. Lucian's voice lowered. Then you stop running. You rest. And I make sure no one ever lays a hand on you again. She looked away, thinking of Cole's threats, the endless nights of fear. Finally, she nodded. Just for a while. Lucian leaned back. That's all I need. As he stood to leave, she asked, why me? He paused at the doorway, his silhouette framed by the morning light. Because you walked straight into the devil's den, he said softly. And you didn't flinch. That night, when Elena looked out her window, she saw Lucian in the courtyard below, talking quietly with two men. Even from up there, she could feel his presence, calm, dangerous, unshakable. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel like prey. For the first time, she thought maybe, just maybe, the devil had saved her life. Elena woke the next morning to the soft sound of rain tapping against her window. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The bed was too soft, the air smelled too clean, and there were no shouting voices, no banging doors, no heavy footsteps coming closer. Then she remembered. The mansion. Lucian Moretti. The man who had stopped her ex with only a few quiet words. She sat up slowly, the silk sheets whispering against her skin. Sunlight filtered through half-closed curtains, turning the room a soft gold. On the bedside table sat a tray with coffee, fruit, and a small note in precise handwriting. Eat something. L. The gesture startled her more than the night before. No one had taken care of her in years, not without wanting something in return. She wrapped a robe around herself, drank the coffee, and stared at the note until the warmth reached her chest. Downstairs, Rosa was arranging flowers in a tall vase. "Good morning, Miss Elena," she said with a smile that softened her strict features. "Just Elena, please," she answered. Rosa nodded. "Mr. Moretti left early. Business meeting. He said you may walk anywhere inside the house or in the back garden." Elena followed the older woman through long corridors lined with dark paintings and antique mirrors. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old books. Every sound echoed the click of heels, the soft rustle of her robe. "This house feels alive," she murmured. Rosa smiled faintly. "It remembers things. Mr. Moretti's father built it. The family has always lived here." They reached a door that opened onto a wide library. Shelves climbed to the ceiling, filled with books bound in leather and gold. A large fireplace slept at one end, cold ashes still faintly gray. "Mr. Moretti spends much of his time here," Rosa said. "He reads more than anyone I've ever met." Elena traced her fingers along the spines of the books. "He doesn't seem like the kind of man who reads." "He doesn't seem like many things," Rosa replied. Later that afternoon, Elena explored the garden, a quiet square of green hidden behind high stone walls. Rain had left the leaves shining, the marble fountain murmuring softly. For the first time in months, she felt her shoulders relax. She didn't hear Lucian until he spoke. "You like the garden?" She spun around. He stood near the doorway, suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled to his elbows, rain still glistening in his hair. "It's beautiful," she said. "My mother planted those roses," he said. "She said every house needs something soft to balance the steel." Elena smiled slightly. "I think she was right." Lucian walked closer, the rain darkening his shirt. "Rosa says you haven't eaten properly today." "I wasn't hungry." "You should eat," he said quietly. "You're safe here, but your body still remembers running." She looked down, embarrassed. "You sound like you've done this before." "I've seen people running from worse things than lovers," he replied. "Fear burns everything until you forget who you were." She looked up at him. "And what did you do for them?" His eyes darkened. "Sometimes I found them a place to rest. Sometimes I couldn't." The silence between them stretched until thunder rolled somewhere far away. He turned toward the house. "Come inside before you catch a cold." At dinner that evening, the long table felt too large for two people. The food was simple: pasta, wine, warm bread. "You don't have to keep me here," she said suddenly. "I know. Then why do it?" Lucian leaned back in his chair, eyes unreadable. "Because when you ran to me last night, you didn't choose safety. You chose danger. Most people spend their lives pretending they aren't afraid. You faced it head on." "That's not bravery," she whispered. "That's panic." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes they're the same thing." When the meal ended, he rose and gestured toward the hallway. "There's something I want to show you." He led her to a locked door near the library. Inside was a small chapel, stone walls, candles flickering before a statue of a woman holding a child. "My mother's," he said quietly. "She prayed here every morning." Elena stared at the flickering lights. "Did she pray for you?" "For all of us," he said. "She believed even devils could be forgiven." He turned to her then, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. "You should rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what comes next." That night, when she closed her eyes, she dreamed of him standing in the rain, his eyes both kind and dangerous. The next morning was colder. Wind shook the trees outside and rattled the windows. Elena found Lucian in the kitchen again, this time reading on his phone, a cup of black coffee beside him. "Morning," she said quietly. He looked up, gave a small nod. "Morning. Sit." She did, and Rosa placed a plate of toast and fruit in front of her. Lucian glanced at her bandaged wrist, the bruise fading to yellow. "How's the arm?" "Better," she said. "I forget it's there sometimes." "Good. Pain fades slower when you keep looking at it." They ate in silence until she asked, "Do you ever get tired of all this?" He looked amused. "All what?" "The power. The fear people have of you." He set down his cup. Fear keeps the wrong people away. It's a kind of peace. You don't look peaceful, she said before she could stop herself. Something flickered behind his eyes, then vanished. You're observant. I've had to be, she replied softly. When you live with someone like Cole, you learn to read danger in every breath. Lucian studied her for a long moment, then leaned forward. Tell me about him. She hesitated. You don't want to hear that? I asked. So she told him. About the charm that had turned into control. About the bruises hidden under long sleeves. About the apologies that always came with flowers and gifts. When she finished, she realized her hands were shaking. Lucian's jaw was tight, his knuckles white where he gripped his cup. He was supposed to protect you, he said quietly. Instead he broke you. She swallowed. He didn't break me. I'm still here. He looked at her then, really looked, and something softened in his expression. Yes, he said. You are. Later that day, he drove her into the city in a sleek black car. She hadn't expected to leave the mansion, but Lucian insisted. Where are we going? She asked, watching the skyline slide past. To see something you should remember, he said. They stopped outside a cafe near the edge of downtown. The place was small, familiar, and she realized with a jolt that she had worked there once. I can't, she started. You can, he interrupted. You need to see that the world didn't stop moving just because he hurt you. Through the window, she saw the manager wiping tables, the morning customers laughing over coffee. Nothing had changed. The world had kept going. I thought if I left, I'd disappear, she whispered. Lucian leaned against the car, watching her. You did disappear. But you can come back, if you want. Tears stung her eyes. Why are you doing this? He shrugged slightly. Because someone once told me that saving people is a weakness. I'm still deciding if he was right. When they returned to the mansion, Rosa met them at the door, worry creasing her forehead. Mr. Moretti, a call came while you were out. Urgent. Lucian's expression hardened instantly. Who? Dante, she said. Elena watched him stride into his study, the door shutting behind him. His voice on the phone was low, quick, the tone of someone used to giving orders that ended in silence. When he finally came out, his face was unreadable. Something wrong? She asked carefully. Your ex, he said flatly. He's been asking about me. About you. Her blood ran cold. How? He still has friends on the force. But it won't help him. She gripped the edge of the table. Lucian, please, don't hurt him. I can't have more blood on my conscience. He stepped closer, his presence filling the space. You think I care about blood? Every inch of this city has been bought with it. Then why help me? She demanded. Why pretend you're any better? For a moment, his expression turned to ice. Then, slowly, he said, because you looked at me last night like I was human. The words stunned her. She didn't know what to say. He exhaled, the anger draining from his shoulders. I'll handle him without violence. But you need to trust me. I don't know if I can, she whispered. Then let me earn it, he said quietly. Stay a little longer. That evening, the power flickered during dinner, lightning flashing outside the tall windows. The air was thick with tension neither of them named. Elena broke the silence first. You lost someone, didn't you? Lucian's eyes lifted slowly. Why do you think that? You look like a man who doesn't want to care again. He set down his fork. Her name was Bianca. My fiancée. What happened to her? He stared at the rain for a long time before answering. Someone wanted to punish me. They couldn't reach me, so they reached her. Elena's heart ached. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said, his voice hard again. I learned my lesson. What lesson? That love makes you weak. She shook her head. Love doesn't make you weak. Fear does. He looked at her then, eyes darker than the storm outside. You think you understand fear? I lived with it every day. For a moment, they stood locked in silence. Then Lucian's expression softened, his voice lowering. Then maybe you'll teach me something. A clap of thunder broke the moment. Rosa entered quietly, announcing that the storm had knocked out power in part of the city. Lucian excused himself to make a call, leaving Elena staring after him. Later, when the lights dimmed, she wandered into the library. A single lamp burned on the desk, casting gold over rows of books. Lucian returned, rain on his coat, tension in every movement. "You should be asleep," he said. "I couldn't." He poured himself a drink, offered her one. She shook her head. "Does it ever get quiet?" she asked softly. "Never," he said. "Not in my world." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever wish you could start over?" He gave a small laugh, bitter and low. "There's no such thing as over for men like me." "Maybe not for the devil," she said, meeting his gaze, "but even devils deserve rest." For a moment, something fragile passed between them, understanding, maybe even hope. Lucian set down his glass and walked closer until only a breath separated them. The storm outside flashed, lightning spilling through the windows. "You should be careful saying things like that," he murmured. "Why?" "Because I might start to believe you." Their eyes held, the air thick with words neither dared speak. Then he stepped back, restoring that thin line of distance that felt more fragile every day. "Go to bed, Elena," he said quietly. "Tomorrow we talk about how to keep you safe." She hesitated, then whispered, "You already do." He said nothing, only watched her leave, the echo of her footsteps fading up the stairs. When she reached her room, she closed the door and pressed her back against it, her heart racing. For the first time since running from Cole, she realized she wasn't just safe. She was in danger again, but not from fear. From feeling something she'd sworn she would never feel again. Elena woke to the sound of raised voices echoing through the hall. She slipped from bed, heart pounding, and cracked open her door. The mansion was usually calm, silent as a church, but now she heard Lucian's voice, cold and sharp, coming from the study downstairs. "Find him," he was saying. "I don't care what it takes." Another man answered in a low tone, someone she hadn't heard before. "We've already checked the precinct. The bastard's gone off duty and isn't answering calls." "You want him alive?" Lucian's reply was like ice. "For now." Elena shut the door softly. She didn't need to ask who they were talking about. Cole had come back into their orbit, and Lucian was moving like a storm preparing to break. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. The study door was half open. Lucian stood near the window, his back to her, dark suit sharp as a blade. Another man leaned on the desk, a tall figure with olive skin and dark eyes, the one who had spoken. Lucian noticed her before she spoke. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning around. "I heard shouting," she said quietly. The stranger turned to look at her. "You must be the reason our boss hasn't slept in 2 days." His grin was playful, but there was an edge beneath it. Lucian shot him a look that could freeze water. "Dante." Right. Dante raised his hands. "I'll give you 2 a minute." He brushed past her, muttering, "Nice to finally meet the girl who caused all this drama." When the door shut, Elena stepped closer. "You're looking for him again, aren't you?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "He's been asking questions about me. About this house. His crossing lines." "Lucian," she said, her voice shaking, "you promised me you wouldn't hurt him." His eyes flicked toward her, dark, unreadable. "And I haven't. Yet." "Please," she whispered. "If you kill him, it'll destroy you too." He turned fully to face her. "You don't understand the kind of man he is. He won't stop until one of us is in the ground." "I do understand," she said, voice rising. "I lived with him for 3 years. I know what he's capable of. But I also know what it means to become like him. Don't do that. Not for me." Something in her words seemed to pierce the armor he wore around himself. His shoulders dropped a little. He stepped closer. "You think you can tell me what kind of man to be?" "I think you already know," she whispered. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was rain ticking softly against the window. Then Lucian reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and handed it to her. "What's this?" "Information," he said. "Where he's been, who he's talked to. I had my people trace him, not to hurt him, to protect you." Elena unfolded it with trembling fingers. There were addresses, phone numbers, a list of places Cole had visited in the past week. One line caught her attention: Police Internal Affairs. Why is he talking to Internal Affairs? She asked. Lucian looked grim. He's feeding them rumors about me. Trying to make you look like bait. If he succeeds, the police will come here. Her stomach dropped. He's using me to get to you. Lucian nodded. Exactly. Then what do we do? He took a step closer, his voice low and calm. We make them believe you belong to me. What? Publicly, he said. You'll stay by my side at every event, every dinner, every photograph that makes it to the news. They'll stop seeing you as a victim and start seeing you as mine. It's the only way to keep him away. Elena stared at him, disbelief flashing in her eyes. You want to pretend I'm your girlfriend? He gave a small, dangerous smile. Pretend, yes. For now. She shook her head. That's insane. It's safe, he countered. And it's the only way. Elena looked at him for a long moment. She should have said no. She should have run. But there was something in the way he said mine, not like a threat, but like a promise. Fine, she said finally. I'll do it. But this is just an act. Lucian's lips curved slightly. Of course. But when she turned to leave, his eyes followed her with something that didn't feel like pretending at all. The first event came sooner than she expected. A charity gala at one of the city's luxury hotels, the kind of place filled with crystal chandeliers and cold smiles. Lucian's world. Rosa helped her dress in a black gown that shimmered under the light. You look beautiful, the older woman said softly. He won't take his eyes off you. Elena laughed nervously. It's not real, remember? Rosa smiled knowingly. Sometimes pretending becomes truth. When Lucian saw her at the bottom of the stairs, time seemed to stop. His eyes swept over her slowly, not with lust but with quiet awe, like he was seeing something rare. You clean up well, he said finally, voice low. So do you, she replied, her heartbeat quickening. In the car, the silence between them felt thick. The city lights passed like stars. Finally, Elena asked, why do you go to these parties? Power, he said simply. People like to pretend they run the city. I go to remind them who really does. At the gala, whispers followed them from the moment they walked in. Heads turned, cameras flashed. The press loved him, the reclusive businessman with a dangerous reputation. And now he had a woman on his arm. Lucian kept her close, his hand warm against her back. Every time someone approached, he introduced her as if she had always belonged there. This is Elena, he would say, voice smooth and steady. My partner. Each time, the word partner made her chest tighten. Halfway through the night, a man in a grey suit approached them. He was broad, his smile too wide, his tone mocking. Lucian Moretti, he said, clapping him on the shoulder. Didn't think I'd ever see you bring a date. Lucian's jaw flexed. Dominic. The man turned to Elena, eyes sliding over her like she was an object on display. So this is the reason the Devil of New York finally decided to play nice. Elena felt Lucian stiffen beside her. His voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Watch your tone. Dominic laughed. Relax. I was only saying she's quite the prize. Lucian's next words came out cold as steel. She's not a prize. She's mine. The air seemed to freeze. Dominic's grin faltered. Then he raised his glass. To you, then. And your beautiful possession. He walked away before Lucian could answer. Elena turned to him. You didn't have to say that. I did, he said quietly. He needed to understand. Understand what? That you're not to be touched. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was something fierce and real behind his words. Not ownership, protection. Later that night, when the crowd thinned, they slipped out to the balcony overlooking the city. The cold air was a relief after hours of forced smiles. Elena leaned against the railing. You really hate these events. I hate people who pretend to be decent, he said. They smile with knives behind their backs. She looked at him sideways. And you? What's behind your smile? He met her gaze. You don't want to know. She laughed softly. Maybe I do. His expression shifted, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. You shouldn't get close to me, Elena. Too late, she said before she could stop herself. Silence hung between them, heavy and electric. Then Lucian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, face hardening. It's Dante, he said, stepping aside to answer. His voice dropped. Talk. Elena stared out at the skyline, pretending not to listen, but his words reached her anyway. Are you sure? When? No, keep eyes on him. If he makes another move, I want to know before it happens. He hung up and turned to her, his calm slipping for the first time. What's wrong? She asked. Your ex. He's in the city again. Her stomach twisted. Here. Lucian nodded. He's been asking questions about tonight. Someone tipped him off. Panic flickered through her. He can't see me here. Please, Lucian. He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. He won't. You're safe. But how can you be so sure? Lucian's gaze locked on hers. Because no one touches what's mine. She wanted to protest, to tell him she wasn't anyone's, but the way he said it made her heart skip a beat. For the first time, it didn't sound like a claim. It sounded like a vow. They left the gala early. In the car, silence wrapped around them again. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city lights. Elena finally spoke. What happens after all this? He looked at her. After? When he's gone? When I'm safe? Do I just disappear again? Lucian didn't answer right away. If that's what you want. She turned toward the window. And if it's not? He stared at her reflection in the glass. Then we'll see. When they reached the mansion, the power was back, and Rosa had left candles burning in the hall. Elena hesitated at the top of the stairs. Thank you, for tonight. Lucian stood below her, his face half-shadowed. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do, she said. You could have let me fall apart, but you didn't. He looked up at her, his expression softening. You were never falling apart. You were just finding where you belong. Her heart thudded in her chest. And where is that? He took a slow step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Here. For now. The space between them felt like fire. For a heartbeat, it seemed he might close it, that his hand might reach for hers. But instead, he turned away. Get some rest, Elena, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be worse. Why? She asked. He paused at the door. Because ghosts don't like being forgotten. And as she watched him walk away, she understood he wasn't just talking about her past. He was talking about his own. Days passed like a soft dream wrapped in glass, fragile, beautiful, and ready to shatter. Elena found herself waking up without panic, walking through the halls of the mansion without glancing over her shoulder. The fear that once lived under her skin was still there, but quieter now, like a ghost learning to fade. Lucian was different these days, too. He still held that calm, dangerous air, but sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, his eyes would soften. He'd ask if she'd eaten, if she'd slept, if she needed anything. It wasn't the behavior of a ruthless man. It was something gentler, something he didn't know how to name. One morning, Rosa found Elena in the garden trimming roses. You look better, Rosa said warmly. I feel better, Elena replied, smiling. Sometimes I almost forget what it felt like to be scared all the time. Rosa's smile dimmed slightly. Don't forget completely, dear. People like us survive because we remember. Before Elena could answer, Lucian's voice carried from behind them. Rosa, a word. The housekeeper nodded and left. Lucian stepped closer, his presence immediately changing the air. You shouldn't be out here alone, he said. I thought you said it was safe. It is. For now. Elena frowned. You keep saying that, for now. What are you not telling me? He hesitated, then sighed quietly. Cole has been quiet for a week. Too quiet. Men like him don't vanish unless they're planning something. Her heart stilled. You think he's coming back? I think he's too proud not to. She turned away, gripping the edge of the stone fountain. I don't want this life to be just waiting for him to come and ruin it again. Lucian stepped closer. Then stop waiting. Live anyway. She looked up at him, startled by the softness in his tone. You make it sound easy. It's not, he said simply. But it's possible. Later that day, Lucian had to leave for a meeting downtown. He told her to stay in the mansion and lock the doors. Elena spent the afternoon in the library, the silence thick and heavy. She found herself drawn to a book lying on the desk, The Count of Monte Cristo. She smiled faintly. A man who'd lost everything and rebuilt himself from the ashes. Maybe Lucian saw himself in it. The front doors opened just before dusk. Heavy footsteps crossed the marble floor. Elena turned, ready to greet him, but froze when she saw the look on his face. He was furious. "Lucian," she said carefully. He didn't answer. He poured himself a drink instead, downed it in one motion, and set the glass down hard enough to make it crack. "What happened?" "Dominic," he said through clenched teeth. "He's been feeding information about me to the police. And guess who helped him?" Her heart dropped. "Cole." Lucian nodded. "They've made an arrangement. Cole gives him names, Dominic gives him money and protection. Your ex is more desperate than I thought." She sank into a chair, her pulse pounding. "So I brought trouble to your door." Lucian's voice softened. "You didn't bring it. Trouble follows me no matter who's beside me." "Still," she whispered, "I never wanted this for you." He looked at her for a long moment. "You think I can't handle men like Cole?" "I think you shouldn't have to," she said, her voice breaking. "Not because of me." Lucian took a slow breath, walked around the desk, and crouched in front of her. His hands rested lightly on her knees, steady, grounding. "Listen to me, Elena. You didn't ask for this. You didn't deserve any of it. And if protecting you means war, then so be it." Tears burned her eyes. "You'll get yourself killed." He smiled faintly. "I've been close before." That night, she couldn't sleep. She went downstairs for water, only to find Lucian standing on the balcony, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. "I didn't know you smoked," she said softly. He gave a quiet laugh. "Only when I'm trying to forget something." "And what are you trying to forget tonight?" He looked out at the dark city. "That the more I protect you, the more I risk everything I built." She stepped beside him, folding her arms. "Then stop protecting me." He turned to her, eyes burning. "You know I can't." Their gazes locked. For a heartbeat, the air was full of all the words they couldn't say. "I used to think safety meant walls and locks," she whispered. "Now I'm starting to think it's you." Lucian's voice dropped low. "Then maybe you shouldn't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're falling." Elena took a small step closer. "Maybe I already have." The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. He reached out, brushed his thumb over her cheek. "You don't know what you're doing, Elena. Maybe you don't either." He leaned in, his breath warm against her skin. For a moment, it felt inevitable, and then he stepped back. "Go to bed," he said quietly. "Before I forget how to be careful." She left, her heart racing, her hands trembling. She didn't sleep that night, not because of fear but because of everything she felt and couldn't say. And as dawn broke, she realized something terrifying: she didn't want to leave. The morning came with news that shattered the fragile peace. Dante stormed into Lucian's office, phone in hand. "We've got a problem." Lucian looked up, instantly alert. "What now?" "Rosa," Dante said grimly. "She didn't show up to the market this morning. Her phone's off. Her car's still in the garage." Lucian stood, cold fury flashing in his eyes. "You think?" "Yeah," Dante interrupted. "Cole." Elena, who'd been standing by the door, felt her knees weaken. "No. He wouldn't hurt her." Lucian turned to her, his voice sharp. "He would do anything to get to you." The words hit her like a blade. "Then I have to go to him." Lucian's eyes darkened. "The hell you do. He wants me, not Rosa," she shouted. "If I go, maybe he'll let her go." Lucian's voice dropped, deadly calm. "If you step one foot outside this house, he'll use you to destroy everything. I can't let that happen. I can't just sit here and do nothing." Dante glanced between them. "She's right about one thing: Cole's not after me or you. He wants control. The woman is his leverage." Lucian's hands curled into fists. Get the car ready. Lucian, Elena began. He cut her off. You're not coming. I'll handle it. But she already knew she couldn't let him face Cole alone. That night, when Lucian and Dante left with their men, Elena slipped out through the side door. She took Rosa's spare car keys and drove toward the address Dante had mentioned during the argument, an abandoned warehouse near the docks. The night air was thick and cold. The building loomed ahead, its windows dark, its silence too heavy. She stepped inside, heart hammering, whispering Rosa's name. Elena. The voice froze her in place. Cole stepped from the shadows, his smile twisted and cruel. I knew you'd come. Where's Rosa? She demanded. He gestured to a chair in the corner. Rosa sat there, tied but unharmed, fear written all over her face. She's fine. For now. Please, Elena said. Let her go. This is between you and me. Cole's smile widened. You ran to him, didn't you? The Mafia King. You think he can love you? You think a man like that won't break you worse than I ever did? You already broke me, she said quietly. He's the one who put me back together. His face twisted. You always were ungrateful. Before he could move, headlights flashed through the cracks in the wall, a car approaching fast. Lucian's car. Cole grabbed Elena, pressing a gun to her side. You called him? I didn't, she whispered, terrified. Lucian's voice boomed from outside. Cole. You've got 5 seconds to walk out before I burn this place to the ground. Cole laughed bitterly. His bluffing. But when the door burst open, Lucian walked in flanked by Dante and 3 armed men, and the look in his eyes said he was not bluffing at all. Let her go, Lucian said evenly. Cole pressed the gun harder. One more step and she dies. Lucian didn't move. You're surrounded. You shoot her, you die next. Cole's hand trembled slightly. You took everything from me. She was mine. She was never yours, Lucian said, voice low and steady. You just didn't know what it meant to love her. For a moment, no one moved. Then Elena whispered, Lucian. The distraction was enough. Lucian moved faster than she could see, a flash of motion, a gunshot, and Cole was on the floor, clutching his shoulder. The gun slid away. Lucian's men rushed forward, grabbing him. Lucian turned to Elena, eyes burning with worry. Are you hurt? She shook her head, tears spilling. Rosa. I'm fine, Rosa called weakly from the corner. Lucian turned back to Cole. The man was bleeding, gasping, hatred twisting his face. Finish it, Dante said quietly. No one would blame you. Lucian's jaw tightened. He aimed the gun, then hesitated. Elena stepped forward, placing her hand on his arm. Don't. He looked at her, fury and pain warring in his eyes. He would have killed you. I know, she whispered. But if you kill him, he still wins. You'll be just like him. For a long, heavy moment, Lucian said nothing. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun. Take him, he said to Dante. Make sure he never shows his face again. Dante nodded. 2 men dragged Cole away, cursing. Lucian turned to Elena. His hand trembled slightly when he touched her cheek. You could have died. So could you, she whispered. He closed his eyes, his forehead resting against hers. Don't ever do that again. I couldn't let you go alone. He gave a soft, bitter laugh. You're going to be the death of me. She smiled through her tears. Maybe just the life of you. When they finally left the warehouse, dawn was breaking. The city glowed faintly gold, the storm clouds fading. In the car, Lucian sat beside her in silence. His knuckles were bruised, his shirt stained with blood that wasn't his. Rosa's safe, he said quietly. Dante's handling cleanup. Elena nodded. What will happen to him? Lucian looked out the window. He'll disappear. No one will ever find him again. Did you kill him? No, his voice was steady. You asked me not to. She turned to him, eyes soft. Thank you. He didn't look at her, just said quietly, don't thank me. I didn't do it for him. They drove in silence the rest of the way home. But as the mansion gates closed behind them, Elena realized something had changed. Cole was gone. The danger was over. But the thing between her and Lucian, that burning, fragile connection, was no longer something they could ignore. It was alive. And it was only just beginning. The sun rose weakly over the mansion, spilling pale light through the tall windows. For the first time in months, there was silence. No phone calls, no footsteps pacing the halls, no sense of a threat hiding in the shadows. Cole was gone. Elena should have felt free. She should have been able to breathe again. But instead, a strange emptiness settled over her chest. The kind that comes when the storm passes and you realize you've forgotten how to live without the thunder. Lucian hadn't spoken much since that night. He'd gone quiet, buried beneath business calls and meetings that stretched late into the evening. When she tried to thank him for saving her, he only said, "You don't owe me anything," before walking away. Rosa noticed, of course. She always did. "He's been through things you wouldn't believe," the housekeeper said one morning as she poured tea. "Every time he lets someone in, something bad happens. He thinks keeping quiet will keep you safe." Elena stared at the steam rising from her cup. "He doesn't have to protect me anymore." Rosa's eyes softened. "Maybe he's not protecting you this time. Maybe he's protecting himself." Later that day, Elena found Lucian in the library, standing by the window. He didn't look up when she entered. The light from outside turned his dark suit to silver and shadow. "I didn't know you read poetry," she said, noticing the open book beside him. "I don't," he replied without looking away. "I was just trying to understand why people waste time on words that don't fix anything." "Sometimes words fix what nothing else can," she said quietly. He turned then, eyes locking on hers. "You believe that?" "Yes." He studied her for a long time before saying, "You asked me once what I was before this life. I used to think words could change the world. But all they ever did was make me a target." Elena took a careful step forward. "And now? Now I rely on actions." "Then act like you're free," she said softly. "You don't have to carry this war anymore, Lucian. It's over." His jaw tightened. "It's never over. It can be. You just have to let it be." He turned back to the window, silent. She could see the conflict in his reflection, rage, guilt, exhaustion. Finally, he said, "Do you know what it's like to hold power for so long that you forget who you are without it?" "Yes," she whispered. "It's like living with someone who tells you you're nothing until you start believing it." He glanced back, his expression softening. "You think I'm like him?" "No," she said firmly. "You're nothing like him. But if you keep living in his shadow, he still wins." Something broke in his eyes then. Not anger, pain. Deep, old pain. He turned away again, his voice rough. "You should go, Elena." She froze. "What?" "You've done your part. You're safe now. You can start over somewhere new." "I don't want to go," she said quickly. "You need to," he said, louder this time. "This house, this life, it changes people. I don't want it to change you." Her voice trembled. "You're pushing me away. I'm setting you free." Tears burned her eyes. "You said I didn't owe you anything. So why does this feel like a punishment?" He didn't answer. He just turned, picked up the book, and walked past her. The door closed softly behind him, and for the first time since she met him, the silence didn't feel safe anymore. That night, Elena packed. She didn't know where she would go. Maybe back to her old apartment. Maybe a hotel. Anywhere but here. Rosa found her at the top of the stairs, suitcase in hand. "Does he know you're leaving?" the older woman asked. Elena nodded. "It was his idea." Rosa sighed. "He always does this. Builds walls and calls them mercy." Elena tried to smile. "Maybe that's the only way he knows how to care." Rosa hugged her tightly. "If you ever need a home, you'll always have one here." When Elena stepped outside, the night air bit her skin. She looked back once, at the mansion glowing faintly behind the iron gates, and whispered, "Goodbye." Days turned into weeks. She rented a small apartment above a bookstore downtown, close enough to the world but far from the noise. She found work at the shop below, arranging shelves, breathing in the scent of paper and ink. Sometimes, when the doorbell chimed and a tall man walked in, her heart would leap before she realized it wasn't him. The city felt different now. Softer, but emptier. One evening, as she closed the shop, she found a small envelope slipped under the door. Her name was written in Lucian's handwriting. She tore it open with shaking hands. You once said words could fix things. I'm still waiting to believe that. Stay safe. L. A single black card was folded inside. No message, no address. Just an embossed symbol, a rose wrapped in a serpent. She didn't need an explanation. It was his way of saying she was still under his protection. But the message that lingered between the lines was clear. He wasn't letting her go completely. Lucian's world without Elena felt colder. The mansion was the same, polished marble, silent halls, but it no longer felt like home. Dante noticed the change immediately. You've been staring at the same page for 10 minutes, Dante said one afternoon, leaning in the doorway of the study. Lucian didn't look up. I'm reading. No, you're pretending to read so you can ignore me. Lucian finally set the book down. Do you ever get tired of talking? Not when it's about you falling apart. Dante grinned, but his eyes were serious. You haven't been yourself since she left. Lucian gave a dry laugh. Maybe this is myself. Bullshit, Dante said flatly. You care about that girl. Don't tell me you don't. Lucian's jaw clenched. Caring gets people killed. Dante crossed his arms. You mean Bianca? Lucian's glare was sharp enough to kill, but Dante didn't flinch. You think pushing Elena away will stop history from repeating? It won't. Lucian stood abruptly. Enough. Dante sighed, shaking his head. You can lie to yourself all you want, boss. Just remember, you're not the only one with ghosts. He turned and left, leaving Lucian staring at the empty doorway. Meanwhile, Elena tried to build a new life. She smiled at customers, laughed with co-workers, and told herself she was happy. But every night, she'd catch herself staring at the city skyline, wondering if he was somewhere out there, watching. She dreamed of him often, his voice, his eyes, the warmth of his hand on her cheek. Waking from those dreams hurt more than the nightmares ever had. One evening, as she was locking the shop, a man approached her. His coat was long, his smile too polite. Elena Hayes. She froze. Who's asking? He flashed a badge. Detective Miller, NYPD. We're investigating a recent series of incidents linked to Lucian Moretti. We believe you can help. Her pulse quickened. I don't know anything. Miss Hayes, he said gently, you were involved with him. You lived in his home. If there's anything you can tell us, anything at all, it could help. She hesitated. He's not the man you think he is. The detective gave her a small smile. No one ever is. He handed her a card. If you change your mind, call me. When he left, her hands were shaking. She tore the card in half and dropped it into the trash. But that night, as she lay awake, she couldn't stop thinking about it. The world was closing in on Lucian again, and this time, she wasn't there to protect him. A week later, she saw it on the news. Mob boss Lucian Moretti targeted in ambush. 2 dead, several injured. Her heart stopped. The report showed footage of flashing lights, police tape, a car riddled with bullets. She grabbed her coat and ran. The mansion gates were half open when she arrived. Armed men moved through the courtyard, voices sharp and urgent. She pushed past them, ignoring their protests, and burst into the foyer. Where is he? She demanded. Dante appeared, his shirt stained with blood. He shouldn't see you. Then he's alive, she gasped. Barely, Dante muttered. You need to go before. But she was already running. She knew exactly where to find him. Lucian lay on the couch in his study, a bandage around his shoulder, blood seeping through his shirt. His eyes fluttered open when she entered. Elena, he whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. What are you doing here? You almost died, she said, dropping to her knees beside him. I saw it on the news. You promised you'd be careful. He tried to smile. I promised to keep you safe, not myself. Tears filled her eyes. You shouldn't have faced them alone. I always face things alone, he murmured. Not anymore, she said firmly. I'm not leaving you again. He reached for her hand, his touch weak but steady. You shouldn't have come. I had to, she whispered. I can't breathe knowing you're hurting and I'm not here. Something flickered in his eyes, pain, relief, love. You walked into hell again, Elena. Then I guess that makes two of us, she said softly. Later that night, after the doctors left and Dante's men secured the perimeter, Elena sat by Lucian's bedside. He drifted in and out of sleep, whispering names she didn't recognize, maybe ghosts of his past, maybe pieces of his guilt. When he finally woke again, the room was quiet. Moonlight fell across his face. You should be resting, she said gently. I can't, he murmured. There's still work to do. Work can wait, she said. You almost died. He looked at her, eyes soft. You came back. I never really left. He smiled faintly. You shouldn't love me, Elena. Maybe, she said, taking his hand, but I do. He closed his eyes, squeezing her fingers lightly. Then God help us both. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance again, rolling over the city like a warning. But for the first time in a long time, Elena wasn't afraid. Because even in all the chaos, even in the blood and danger, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. They belonged to each other, broken pieces finding peace in the same fire. And no matter what came next, she wasn't walking away. The storm had not stopped since the night of the ambush. Rain swept across the city like grief, beating against the windows of the mansion where Lucian lay recovering. The doctors came and went, the guards rotated, and Dante never left the premises. Yet in the middle of it all, Elena stayed, quiet, steady, refusing to move from his side. Lucian slept often, drifting in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he murmured fragments of Italian, sometimes her name. Each time he stirred, she was there, holding his hand, wiping sweat from his brow. One morning, when the rain was softer, his eyes opened fully. The haze was gone. He looked around the room, saw her slumped in the chair beside his bed, fast asleep with her head resting on her arm. Elena, he whispered, his voice low and rough. Her eyes flew open. Lucian. He smiled faintly. You're still here. Of course I'm still here, she said, sitting up straight. You scared me half to death. He tried to sit up, grimacing in pain. You should have left when I told you. You should have listened when I told you I wouldn't, she shot back, glaring through her tears. You nearly died. Again. Lucian chuckled weakly. You have a habit of arguing with me even when I'm bleeding. She folded her arms, tears glistening. If I didn't, you'd already be in a grave. Dante entered just then, smirking when he saw them. Well, look who finally decided to wake up. The city's been waiting for its devil to rise. Shut up, Dante, Lucian muttered, but his tone held a trace of amusement. Dante's smile faded. You should know the hit wasn't random. Someone from the inside gave them your route. Lucian's expression darkened. Who? We don't know yet, Dante said grimly. But whoever it was, they knew exactly where you'd be. It's betrayal from within. Lucian leaned back against the pillows, exhaustion flickering in his eyes. Find them. Already on it, Dante said. He hesitated, then added, and Lucian. I'm glad you're alive. Lucian gave a slow nod. So am I. When Dante left, the room fell quiet again. Elena brushed a hand through her hair and said softly, You can't keep living like this. Every time someone hurts you, you hurt them back. It never ends. He turned his head toward her. It's all I know. Then learn something else, she said. Let me help you. Her words hung in the air, fragile and real. He didn't answer, but she could see in his eyes that something inside him had shifted. The next few days were slow. Lucian's strength returned, though the bandage on his shoulder reminded him of how close he'd come to losing everything. Elena was there through all of it, helping him walk, making sure he ate, even reading to him when the nights were long. Sometimes, they sat in silence. Sometimes, he told her stories of his past, small, quiet memories of a boy raised in a house full of violence who learned too early that mercy was weakness. One night, as the rain finally cleared, he said softly, When I was young, I used to think the world owed me something. Then I learned the truth, it doesn't owe you anything. You take what you can or it's taken from you. Elena shook her head. That's what they taught you. But it's not true. He looked at her. Then what is? You don't take what you want, she said gently. You build it. You protect it. That's what you've been doing with me all this time. You just don't see it. For the first time, Lucian didn't argue. He only stared at her for a long moment, his gaze soft, almost uncertain. Then, slowly, he reached for her hand. Do you regret coming back? He asked quietly. She smiled through the ache in her chest. Not for a second. He squeezed her hand. You shouldn't have had to walk into my world to save me. Maybe it wasn't about saving you, she whispered. Maybe it was about saving myself. Lucian's eyes glimmered in the dim light. You did that the day you ran from him. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then he said, almost to himself, you walked into hell, Elena. And somehow, you made it feel like home. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. Then don't send me away again. His hand slid up, cupping her cheek. I couldn't if I tried. When their lips met, it wasn't passion, it was relief. Years of pain, fear, and loneliness dissolved into one long, trembling kiss. For the first time, Lucian felt what peace might actually mean. That night, he slept soundly, and she stayed beside him, her fingers tangled with his. By the end of the week, Lucian was back on his feet, though Dante still hovered like a shadow. Boss, Dante said one morning, we found out who leaked the information. Lucian's eyes hardened. Who? Dante looked grim. Dominic. Lucian's jaw tightened. Of course. That snake's been waiting to strike. Elena's stomach twisted. What will you do? Lucian looked at her, voice quiet but certain. Finish it. Lucian. He held up a hand. No more running. He tried to kill me. I can't let that stand. She wanted to argue, but she knew there was no stopping him. So instead, she said softly, then promise me one thing. What? Come back to me. Lucian gave a small smile. I will. And for once, she believed him. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Dominic was cornered in a high-rise office late that night, his security useless against Lucian's precision. When Lucian walked into the room, Dominic smirked, raising his hands. Well, the devil survives. I should have guessed. Lucian's expression was unreadable. You sold me out. Dominic laughed. Don't act surprised. You taught us all that loyalty's just another word for fear. I stopped being afraid. Lucian stepped closer, eyes cold as steel. Then you should have learned when to stay quiet. You're not going to kill me, Dominic said. Not in your weakened state. Lucian tilted his head. You're right. Dominic's smirk faltered. I'm not going to kill you, Lucian continued. But you'll spend the rest of your life wishing I had. When Lucian left that building, Dominic was still breathing, but his empire, his money, and his reputation were all gone by morning. Lucian returned home before dawn. Elena was waiting by the window, her body tense with worry. When he walked in, bloodless but alive, she ran to him and wrapped her arms around his neck. He held her tight, breathing her in like air after drowning. It's over, he whispered. She pulled back slightly. For good. For good, he promised. Her eyes filled with tears. You came back. I told you I would. He pressed his forehead to hers. I always will. For the first time, she believed that peace wasn't a dream. It was real. It was here, in his arms. Months passed, and the city slowly forgot the chaos. Whispers of Lucian Moretti faded to rumor, replaced by new scandals, new names. But in quiet corners of the underworld, people still spoke of him, the devil who disappeared after finding his angel. Lucian had stepped away from his empire. Dante ran the business now, keeping things in order while Lucian stayed far from the spotlight. Elena and Lucian lived quietly in the countryside, in a small villa overlooking the sea. The house was nothing like the mansion, no marble, no guards, no shadows lurking in the corners. Just sunlight, open windows, and the scent of salt in the breeze. Every morning, Elena tended the garden while Lucian read by the porch. Rosa had moved in with them, claiming the house needed a proper woman's touch. Dante visited sometimes, always bringing trouble and laughter. It was a simple life, and for the first time, Lucian didn't hate it. One afternoon, as Elena painted by the window, Lucian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're getting paint on the floor," he murmured. She laughed softly. "You used to have men killed for less." He smiled. "You make a lot of things I used to care about seem small." She leaned back against him. "Do you ever miss it? The power?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I look at you, and I remember why I walked away." She turned to face him, brushing her fingers over his scar. "You didn't walk away, Lucian. You built something better." He kissed her forehead. "You did that. You gave me peace." That evening, they walked along the shore. The sun dipped low, painting the water gold. Lucian watched her laugh as the waves touched her feet. He had seen the world bend to his will, had watched men fall at his command, but nothing compared to the sound of her laughter in the fading light. She turned to him, her hair catching the wind. "You know," she said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were the most dangerous man I'd ever seen." "I was," he said. "And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I'm just a man who got lucky." She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "Lucky?" He nodded. "You sat on the devil's lap and somehow made him believe in heaven." Elena's eyes shimmered. "You think we deserve this?" He looked out at the horizon, the waves reflecting the last light of day. "After everything we've been through, I think we earned it." They stood there in silence, the world around them calm and endless. Lucian pulled her close, his voice barely above a whisper. "You called this place a prison once. What do you call it now?" She smiled, resting her head on his chest. "Home." He pressed a kiss to her hair. Then the devil finally found his heaven. As the sun disappeared behind the sea, Lucian closed his eyes, holding her tighter. The world had taken so much from him, his innocence, his peace, his trust, but in the end, it had given him her. And for a man who once believed love was weakness, that was the strongest thing he had ever known. And that is how the devil found his heaven. But tell me, if you were Elena, would you have trusted a man like Lucian? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm reading every single one. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next heart-stopping chapter. Because here, every love story comes with a little danger. See you in the next one.